Alrighty, let's have some fun. Let's have some fun towards the end of Summit. Let's do a quick question. Who's using Active Directory in their environment? Working on a domain, maybe? Yeah. Just about everybody? Okay. Alrighty, cool. Containers? Yeah? Yeah, that was yesterday. Okay. Fine. Fine. Another one, quick one. Okay, everyone's had a good summit, I assume. Who has learned something that's just like blowing your mind? Like every hand, right? Good, I don't have to work as hard. Good, good. I'm not promising this is going to do this, but maybe it will. We'll find out there. Please silence your phones. Those who have seen me before know that I will most likely be the one who will walk over and answer your phone for you. And I am on a microphone, and I am being recorded. So it will be living on forever. Plus, I give permission to everybody to smack the person next to you if their phone goes off. Or their laptop if you're taking notes and all I hear is bing, bing, bing. No. We're not keen on that either. So laptops and devices as well. You've probably seen this a few times. So I'll just go over real quick. But pass is what got me up here. Not in the sense that they just picked me. But actually, this is how I built my career, is going past all the training, all these tools that we have, user groups, 24-hop. What else we got on here? We got our SQL Saturdays. I mean, I should know most of these. I run a bunch of stuff over in DC for this. But yeah, the training that we have is insane. If you thought that what you've been seeing here is crazy, 24-hop, it's the same sessions. SQL Saturdays, it's the same sessions. User groups, it's the same sessions that you get here, what you're going to see at those events and that. So if you're not actively participating in those, strongly, strongly recommend you find where they are. pass.org, check it out, and get those links in there. All right. Who am I? Okay, fine, nobody knows. My name's Chris Bell. I'm currently the lead DBA at The Motley Fool. If you ask me for investment advice, my best advice is do not listen to me. And then go buy their products. That's kind of my disclaimer. And then I say is my opinion, blah, 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 blah. We're not talking finance today, which is good. Over 20 years working with SQL Server and lives outside the box. Now, lives outside the box. Obviously, they wanted us to put kind of funky little things on here. Lives outside the box. I mean, like I said, I have 2 giant dogs too, but lives outside the box in the sense that I like doing weird stuff with SQL Server and other systems. And today's presentation is kind of half of one of those weird things I want to do. I am out of the Washington, D.C. area. I am the past D.C. founder and lead for that. I also run the SQL Saturday out there. I've also run the SQL Saturday that was up in Nova Scotia, where I'm originally from. So my Canadian will slip out every now and then. It's not the polite side. Sorry. And former data platform MVP. So, you know, try to do things in the community. Session evals, these are important. When you fill these out and you put the proper marks on it, I do not show up anymore. When you get people like me. I know, I've been told, too much self-deprecating, stop it. No, that's fine. No, these are important. They do help program committee make some selections in that, of knowing who people like to see, and we try to get them to come back in and that kind of thing. But also for me, it's a huge help, and for every other speaker. You know, we put a lot of work into these. We'd like to hear your feedback of how can we make this better. We're doing this for you. We hope you're on our side. Thumbs up, yeah, we are. Okay, great, all right. So yeah, so let us know. We actually like to hear that. So we're gonna start off with a really quick quiz. In your SQL Server system, what is the best way to improve performance? What? Get rid of the users. Well, yeah, but you can still have jobs that are automatically running crappy queries, and well, that's not gonna help you get better performance. What else you got? Memory. Throw memory in there. Throw hardware. Throw money at the machine. Right, we don't all have the luxury of budgets. Anything else? Hold on, wait. Reduce number of columns. Everyone's like, what does this got to do with security stuff? You want to know the best way I found to get the best performance out of your database? Ha. When I have no data in my database, it runs real fast. It's not right, but it runs real fast. So let's elaborate on that and get into my talk here. What's the best way for me to improve security in my database system? Right? Somebody already said it earlier. Get rid of the users. Yeah, let's remove the users from our system. That'll work. If you can't get in my system, it should be pretty secure. Pretty happy with that. This was an idea I came up with late last year, earlier this year. Kind of fun. It's like, could I use SQL Server without any actual user logins? That'd be really interesting if I could. Let's see what Summit thinks. Threw this out here, and they picked it, which meant I had to figure it out. Can I or can't I? What I'm going through today is half of the theory that I've gotten here, that I've done. I've actually I'm starting to implement this entire solution to have no user accounts in my databases, and it's working. It's kind of fun. So you're going to get to see the first part of this. Hopefully at some point we'll get to see the second part somewhere, somehow, here next year. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. So the theory is to be able to use SQL Server without a traditional user account. Now, I'm very particular with that word traditional, right? And when I say traditional, I'm talking about things like no individual login has access to anything. That includes Active Directory logins, domain/username. Everybody know their domain/username? All right, you know what it is? Shout it out. It's a username, like whatever, okay, fine. But also SQL logins. How many people here have an app that's not using integrated security, but they said, but it has to connect to SQL. So you went and made a SQL login. I'm seeing hands go up. I want to see how long these stay up. So not in the sense of like a stress test, but I got more questions for this. So you created the SQL login. Okay, fine. Here's your SQL login done. Who disabled the password policy on it so it doesn't reset or expire? Come on, treat the room like Vegas. There's no camera in here. It's only audio. Yeah, we all do that. We've all done that. Yeah, so that's kind of annoying because we don't want to manage our passwords and that kind of thing. That's like, yeah, you let your app do your thing. You're going to hard code it in your app somewhere. Do I have a lot of devs in the room? Only a couple. Okay, so I can make more comments. That's not big enough to like take me completely, I think. I don't know. Oh yeah, they're a pretty tough looking guy there. But when I look at this, I also consider running my services. Okay? I'm assuming most of us are not using the default system accounts to run our services and our systems, right? Okay, so we're using domain account of some sort with a password. Can I take a wild guess about how when that password expires? Yeah, I don't think I have to say much more when you get the room laughing at that. Yeah, we tend to set it and we're kind of like, yeah, let's not do that because then I actually have to change the password and stop and start my service and someone will yell at me for the 2 seconds it takes to do that. Well, the good thing is with Active Directory, there's some features that we can use to manage this for us, make life a bit easier for us as database administrators and database folks doing this kind of thing. Now this needs Windows Active Directory. Go figure, I'm doing an Active Directory session, I kind of need that. I've not vetted this out on SQL and Linux yet. Has anybody done that? No, okay. And I haven't done it with containers yet. The main reason I haven't done it with containers is because containers don't really play with Active Directory very nicely yet, as far as the database systems go. And I can say yet, I know it's someone's roadmap to make it work. There's some third-party company I think you can buy a plugin and use that. I'm not keen when I'm working in my major environments of having some random place over here providing me a tool that's the way I have to survive. I'd rather have my main stable ones. My opinions. So yeah, so you're going to need Windows Active Directory for this. You may not have permission to it. Anybody here their domain admin as well as your SQL admin? There's always some, yeah. Do you want to be that admin? They just said you've heard of AD and you heard of SQL. Guess what? You're now a DBA and a sysadmin. Yeah, okay. All right. Well, the first thing I started using with this was Active Directory groups. Are we familiar with the concept of Active Directory groups? I'm seeing yes, no's, maybes. Yeah, okay. Basically what it is an organization of Active Directory users. So we all know we have our user accounts. Everyone's got their user accounts and that. And we can go and create these organizations. There's a couple of types of groups in there that you can have. You have a security group. Those ones we're going to care about today. The other ones we can have are distribution groups. It's kind of like when you email, help@business.com, and it goes off to 50 different people in your organization through your Exchange servers and that. That kind of sets that distribution up for some of that kind of stuff. We really don't care about that with what we're doing. It has not much to do with our SQL Server and getting this stuff secured. There's also a few scopes when you set up these accounts. There's domain local. We can probably guess what that is, right? That gives us permission to resources such as files and folders, this kind of tangible things, if you will, on the domain. and that. So we can set up that kind of permission in there. There are global, which we set to provide resources to another domain. And there's universal, which span multiple domains. Where I work, we have 2 domains. We have one that's for our servers and that. We have one that's for our users. They have different domain names. We use universal groups because that lets us bridge over that gap nice and relatively seamlessly. And then local, just local ones, which you've probably done these on your own machine, probably Googled something. It's like, why isn't this working? Oh, go to your local users and account setting and go and change users and roles, local users and roles, and change the setting in here on your server and do all this kind of weird stuff that everyone's going to forget about, and you're going to build a new server over here and forget to do it, and yeah, been there, done that. So let me get into why I'm looking at AD groups. What I really like about this, in SQL Server, we know we can grant permissions to our users, but we can also grant permissions to Active Directory groups as a unit. And this got me really thinking of like, wait a minute, if I can do that, I don't have to worry so much about my individual users. I can start sticking them in groups and seeing what I can do with that. What I like with this, I'm a DBA and I'm lazy. No, efficient. I'm efficient. And what this does for me is lets me shift the responsibility of those user accounts to my sysadmin team, except for if I'm the sysadmin as well. I'm still doing the same amount of work, but that's what happens. This can be done for separation of duties, which is sometimes required to be compliant in different compliance matters. You may have to do this. How about another quick little survey? Assuming everybody here has gone and looked into the users on their systems and that, have you ever found a domain user that's no longer at your company in your database? Yeah, I think we all have. Yeah. Yeah, this is kind of one of the problems, is when they go and they take people out of Active Directory, we grant them permissions to our databases as users in that, well, Active Directory doesn't go, oh, hey, that's over in those SQL servers, let me go remove those too. It doesn't do that. That starts to lead to a lot of mess, and of course they're left there because somebody had an app or someone has some kind of access to something and we can't get rid of it because who knows what it's going to break. Oh my gosh, I don't know what's going on, but that just works. Just let it be. All right. Fun story, a couple months ago, my infrastructure team came after me. Yeah, that's always fun. We were shifting some of our file stores from one system to a whole new system, and they said, hey, we told everybody to move and get rid of their old stuff, and you got stuff out there from 2012. I'm like, no, I don't. I cleaned all my stuff up and moved it. No, we found this whole folder under CBell in our domain. That's your stuff from 2012. You hired me in 2016, buddy. It's not mine. Apparently, they had a different employee back in 2012, had last name Bell, first name starting with some C. But this is that kind of ghost thing that sits out there. Now imagine if you went and you had a prior DBA. They were sitting in your system in there, right? They're in your domain. Oh, we can't get rid of the account because some service or some agent job is running and doing that kind of thing. It'll be fine. They hire someone, and someone over in the domain admin goes, oh yeah, I'll just give them domain/cbell. There we go, that's who they are now. And they just became the DBA and sysadmin of your SQL servers without anybody knowing. And I got a really squeaky stage. Like, do you hear that? I think I'm gonna stand way over here on the edge. It feels safer. Yeah, so there's things like that. It's like, yeah, but what I like about using groups is if I had the people in a group and I gave permission to the group, when you're removed from the group or you're up in AD and they say, oh, I've moved from one position to another position. Oh, well, you move from this group and you go into that group. Guess what happens in my SQL server? I don't have to do anything because they don't have an actual user account there. The group is what's giving them the permissions, right? That's where we granted everything. So they automatically move out and away from the systems they're not supposed to access anymore. Now, yes, this does take a lot of planning and prepping on our side and all that. And sorry, I just looked back there and saw my new DBA I hired to sleep. It's been a long week for us. And he's going to watch the recording of this and hear that, which makes it even better. What I really like, too, is that in Active Directory, I can nest my groups together. Layers, we love layers, like 7-layer bars. Or guac dip, what's the 7-layer dip, right? Yeah, we can do that. We can do that. We can actually go in. So I sat there and thought about it. I was like, well, what I can start to do now, what if I had somebody and this one person needs read access to this one database, or this has to be able to execute this one procedure down here. I can go in Active Directory and I can make a group that I grant the permission of just that to and let it sit there and that's in. That one person is in it. Because odds are in the future something's going to happen to that person. Someone else is going to have to do it, and you just drop them in the group in AD, and I don't have to do anything past that initial config in here. Great. Well, let's say it was a BI person and they need access to these tables over here in this database system, but we want to kind of watch that a little bit. And then the other ones we gave over here, we decided to make a bigger BI group and put them together. I can create another AD group above that, take those small groups and nest them inside that upper one, say now you're in this upper one, you'll inherit these permissions down below, and that kind of thing. And we can do hierarchies, start getting in there. You start to see how this starts to give you a lot of flexibility, a bit easier, not necessarily as easy to track everything, but there's some scripts that you can run to do that kind of thing. So let's take a look at what's involved with creating an AD group, and I'm just going to do it through the GUI because it's Friday afternoon. Why not? Grant access system admin there, and I want to remove the individual accounts and see, can this person still log in now with a group without having any local accounts there? Right? And we'll go and see, make sure they can connect in there. That sound good? Yeah, we're on board with that? Okay. Now we can hope that this all works. Let's see. Which account's that? Yeah, this will work. You guys see that okay? Guys, gals, people? I don't know what term to use anymore. I'm sorry. There's my Canadian coming out. I got one called Walks Precon here. It's just a database. And if we take a look over here, is it working? Yes. Yay, zoom it. You see I got a few accounts created over here. Walks, C-Bell, Digby, Gigi, and Sven. C-Bell is me, Digby is my big dog, Gigi is my wife, and Sven is my small dog. I'm so glad I said that in the right order. My wife watches these too. Big and small dog. Big dog's 185 pounds. Small dog's 147 or something right now. He's just turning 2. He just turned 2 on Saturday. Actually, tomorrow he turns 2. So yeah, and he's still got another year of growing. So I have 2 black bears at home. But oddly enough, I'm fine. I've got sysadmin rights on my box. Of course I do. That's what I do. Gigi doesn't like doing any of this tech stuff, so she doesn't have any rights in here. Digby, when I did all my consulting remotely from home, sat in my office all the time, so that was like 8 years. I think he's got some experience in SQL. At least on his resume, he says he has 8 years of experience with SQL, because he's sat there and watched it this whole time. I just went through a whole lot of interviews of trying to hire people, so yeah, I think that's a valid statement. Please don't lie on resumes. Really, please don't. It makes it really hard to do things. Huh? Which breed? I have 2 Newfoundland dogs. Yeah, everyone's like, oh, you weren't kidding. Yeah, they drool like crazy. Here you can see Digby's in here. He's got sysadmin rights. Sven being the rotten little bugger that he is, he was one of those like, no, I need sysadmin rights to run my little app. And like, yeah, no, you don't need sysadmin rights. You just need DBO on your database. That's all I'm giving you is DBO on your little database, the Walks Precon database. Actually, I haven't given him permissions there, but here, we'll make him DB owner in there. Just to lock it. Oh, I say this. Where am I in here? Whoops, select database helps, right? Yeah, he's the DB owner in there. So he's got access to his own little database. Let him mess it up. I can restore that for him. It's a dev environment. You laugh, I'm being nice by using my dog's names. So if I come in here, connect into my pre-con session here and do an execute as login, does anybody use this execute as login thing to test permissions and stuff? This is like the best thing to do. The other alternatives go, hey, I got to test your permissions work. Can you give me your password? You'd be surprised at how well that works. No, really, try it. No, don't try it. Don't try it, that would be really bad. But it works a disturbing amount of times. I'm going to say execute as that. I just like to do a username and system username just to make sure that I am acting as that person. Do a select from the table, revert back, and then see what I am and who I am in that here. We'll fire that off, see the results that we get. Yep, logged in as Sven. I was here, went in, got the GUID, and then reverted back to me. You'll see that I'm a sysadmin, so I come in and marked as DBO. right? Because I don't have an account in that database. But I'm sysadmin, I come in as DBO. But Sven, he has an account all the way through, so we got linked, the login to the account are both linked through there. Just an interesting, fun little thing to see of how we can track that through. Well, now let's have some fun. Let's go and say, you know what, Sven, I just put new floors in, and you know what you did? Yeah. Couldn't wait till I got home. No. 145-pound dog. Yeah, wasn't fun. Get out of my system. Get out. Yeah, I know I got to go in the database. All right, go in the database. Yeah, let's go in here too. Don't you love it when you get to do this? Get out of my database. Get off my lawn. I'm old now, I can say that. I say it every week, actually, for reality. Yeah. All righty. Oh, you're still down here. Go away. Oh, you're just not refreshed. Yeah, you're not refreshed down there. Oh, you're not taking it out of there. Get out of there. Blah, 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 blah. Oh, of course, it's dropping, failing. Why is it dropping? It's because it's demoing here. Oh, I know why. Yeah, that's my dumb. That's because over here I actually have them logged in. Fine, disconnect, and we'll just, yeah, we should be all right. That shouldn't be connected right now. Oh, really? This is the true life of a DBA. Is it still going to think it's logged in over there? Oh, come on. Fine. You know what? Fine. Yeah, it's the session thing. I just didn't want to have to go and do an execute as and remember another password. You'll get that when I go over to MSAs and stuff. But yeah, let's just, okay, let's go. Sven, get out of here. Go. Done, gone. All right, so we saw that, right? That was like painful. Sorry it was that painful. There's that Canadian slipping out. So now let's go over to Active Directory, and we can see I've got Sven, Gigi, Digby, and me all in here. These are our regular accounts, just in SQL user and an organizational unit on the left. That's what we call our folders, organizational units. And for me to go ahead and get in here, make a new group, I can pretty much right-click anywhere, go New Group. And we'll call this Only DBA. Only DBAs, I'm going to leave it as Global Security Group. I only have one domain, so I'm just going to leave it as Global. Ta-da, I've made a group in Active Directory. So when they tell you it's going to take 2 weeks, right? Yeah. And when you open this up, you see I can go and I have a members and member of. So member of is where I can put it and start nesting this into other groups. Members are the members that are in here. So I'm going to go ahead and add. We'll add Sven in here. And we'll add Gigi, and let's add Digby too. Let's go ahead and do that in here. All right, get that in there, apply that in, done, gone. Great, so now we've got a group with some people in there. And get over here, I can come in, go into my login, say you were right, 12 minutes in, everyone's leaving. We'll get to the good stuff in just a couple minutes. They make you pad it out with a bunch of other stuff. Go in DBA. First thing when you're going to do this, of course, you got to switch to your actual domain. But also what you've got to do is go up to object types, and groups is not marked by default. So if I go and I look for the group I made, don't be like me and go, why is it not there? Why is it not there? I know they made it. They told me they made it. I saw them make it. It took them 2 weeks. Come on. Go up, mark that groups, and then you're actually going to be searching through the groups. Also notice service accounts isn't there as well. That's a whole other thing. We'll get to that in a little while. Check our name. We called it what? Only DBA? Only DBA. Great. We'll add only DBA in. And just because, let's go and make that a sysadmin. Now I have this only DBA account in here. And notice the icon changes just a little bit. Can you guys see that all right? Right? I know it's a little blurry. But you've got users, and now you have like people praying to some weird object, a server, I guess, hoping that it works. That's the group. That's then when you know you've got your Active Directory groups in here. I've got permissions granted there. And I don't have Sven anymore in this system here. So if I come over and connect in, I'm going to go, OK, let's do this. I want to do this as Sven. I'm actually going to get an error. Once someone's in a group, I can't impersonate them. Kind of sucks. It actually does kind of suck. I'd like to be able to impersonate them. Can't really do that. So how do you know this is going to work? Well, this is the case where you say, give me your password, and I'm going to go check your permissions. I haven't found a workaround for it yet, but what I tend to do is I'll go in the domain, I'll get a test account made for me, have them put it in the groups that I'm working on, and then I can go and log in and see that it's doing what I need it to do. It's an older and clunky method of doing it. Price you got to pay for getting rid of everybody. When you get rid of everybody, you got to do more work. It's like a whole life thing. So yeah, let's fire up an SMS here real quick. Let's do this one over here. I'm gonna open the location so I can do it this way and run as a different user. So if I logged in as Sven, whoops. See if I got that right. Hopefully I got that right. I can go and log in here. And I'll be able to connect my server. Now remember, we don't have a login for Sven. We don't have any domain, or we don't have any database accounts for Sven anymore. So as this fires up on my ancient, clunky old Service Pro 3, there we go, come on. What gets interesting is that, yeah, I can go ahead and just log in, and I'm in. Because those permissions are being relayed to my connection through this group. And once I'm in, remember, what do we give that group permission to do? Everything, right? Sysadmin. So let's see here. Come on, where's my login connection here? There we go. You'll notice here, this is actually logging in as Sven, not me, because that's my now integrated security running as a different user. Just connect to my local machine there, go over there and run that. And we can see, of course, because I highlighted something. There's my results, just like before that I got, except now I have DBO walk Sven. Woohoo, that should start to get scary. And if I was going over on my system, I go into my database and look, I'm not going to see down in my security under users, I have, there's no Sven on my users of the database. Just like when I go to my logins for my server, I don't have a walk Sven there either. Okay, it's all starting to come through that AD group. Okay, so you got the gist of why I kind of like the groups. Now my individual users start to go away. Now I'm not going to cover SQL logins. That's a whole other session, as I said. But that concept is using application roles in some other ways, and that actually works using integrated security as well, not just SQL logins. So that's kind of a cool way to get around that side, that you can wind up getting all those individual user accounts out of your system and gone. Any questions about any of that kind of stuff that was kind of interesting? Or did you know you could do those things with groups and then we gave permissions and all that kind of stuff? And you still showed up. That's awesome. All right. You're here for the GMSA stuff. That's what everybody's here for. I know. I know. You're here for this stuff. All right. Let's get into this fun stuff instead. Standalone Managed Service Account, the SMSA. That's hard to say. At the end of a Friday, that gets hard to say. These are designed to provide services and tasks their own domain accounts that we can grant permissions to. There are a few things that it automates when we start using these accounts. One of the best things is password management. I love this, that it actually manages the passwords for us and changes the passwords, updates them, does all that for us. We don't have to worry about it. SPN, right? That starts to be automated for us depending on which versions you're in of SQL Server, and that when we're using these and an Active Directory. This starts to manage that, server principal name. This becomes key to use when we are using Kerberos techniques, has anybody ever set up a linked server and have to use a SQL login because that hop thing gave you an error every single time? Yeah, that's Kerberos acting up. Not Kubernetes, that's a different thing. Kerberos, that's Kerberos acting up there, and that deals with SPNs and trustworthy, which actually the delegation aspect with trustworthiness and the AD, that's managed by this as well. So once you start getting these MSAs fired up, they start to trust each other more because they know it's not some human writing passwords in here and stuff and doing this kind of thing, and it kind of starts to act a little bit nicer with itself in there. This has been around since Windows 2008 R2 and Windows 7. This is when this was all introduced. Standalone managed service accounts are limited to one server. I make this account, I associate it to this server, that's what I can use it on. I can't use it on a second server. I could take it off of this server and use it on a server there, take it off of that, put it there, but it's dedicated to one actual server that it can run on. think I got that clear enough there, right? Oh, set that hammer down there. And the cool thing is the managed service account is like a user account and a computer account in our AD at the same time. And what does that mean? Well, it's a quasi-computer object, and it uses the same password management mechanism that the computer objects in our Active Directory use. Ooh, it's doing cool stuff under the sheets. These passwords that it generates are updated every 30 days by default. Okay? You may not need every 30 days. You may need every 120 days, but by default, every 30 days, this is changing. But you can control this. You can change it. It's a registry change. I can go in and say, hey, go into my HKLM, system current control set, services net logon parameters. I have to look at my screen for that. I'm not going to remember that path. Disable password change equals 0. Why? If it's going to do a management for me, why am I turning that off? It's like getting a Ferrari and turning off, like, 7 of the 8 cylinders and ripping out all the turbos. And putting a crank start on it instead of a key and push button. Right? That's now a manual process involved. But you can turn it off if you want, or you can change the max number of days before the password change. If you have 120 days and you absolutely want to have it change every 120 days, you can go ahead and do that. But if you need 120 days or 90 days, you can, it's okay to change it every 30 days, most likely. Yeah? So is Active Directory managing the password? Yes. That's where it's being managed for us.
So with the local machine, you're setting a registry setting there to govern when it is changed.
Yes, this is going to be configured down on the local machine of when it's going to go to get the new passwords. Again, this is a standalone account too, so it's only since you're only connected through on this one server to the AD, that's why we can have this kind of control in there to say, hey, you're in, because it's not as simple, and we'll get to it in a little bit. You don't just go and say, look, I made a service manager account, okay, now use it over here on the server. You have to actually install it on the server. Yeah, there's installs too. So it's kind of interesting in there when we get into that. Other things about here, it is a computer-generated password that happens out here. Complex, out in the AD. It's 240 bytes, 120 characters long. Okay? And it's cryptographically random. Have fun guessing that password. Right? If you can guess that, if I could guess that, I'd be living on an island because I'd be cracking into a lot of systems. What's intriguing is that it cannot be locked out. So if it's getting attacked by this, it's not going to lock itself out, because if it does that, your service is going to stop, right? You don't want to have that happen. So it cannot be locked out. It can be disabled, which is different than it being locked out, which basically is the automatic disabling of it. But the general concept is you cannot log in interactively with this account either. You can't say, hey, I want to log in as my managed service account this, even if you knew what the password was. And there's ways to get that, figure that out and to set that. But you can't log in interactively. You can manually set the password, but I don't see any justifiable reason for it. Right? Like, you already saw how complex it is. I don't think every 30 days you want to go and create a password like that and try to push it through and manage. Just let the system do it. We have tools to do this for us. It's great. But these get managed. The thing when we're doing this is it's easier to manage this with PowerShell and put it all out there and that kind of a thing. It also, as I said earlier, automatically maintains server principal names, linked to one computer at a time. Kind of covered these already. Supports delegation, so we get that trust factor happening there. So our Kerberos and that starts to work. We can add an MSA to an Active Directory group. Ooh. So you start making those AD groups and you want to give it permission to do different things on another server. You could actually start to link through and give it permission, not to run your services, but it can connect to other databases if you wanted through the AD groups. It can access things and you can say, hey, I have an AD group that my file team uses, my file system team uses to help me manage my backup repository, because I don't back up onto my same machine that's going to burst into flames and I lose everything. I put it somewhere else, right? Well, now you can also say, well, yeah, I can give that access to my service account as well by throwing it into the same group. Make sense? I see your hand kind of, yeah. So each host in each application would have to have its own managed service account For the application. So yeah, if you had multiple hosts running for an application, in theory at that point, yes. At this point in time of the presentation, yes. I like that. I just came up with that. I like that. At this point in time, yes, that's what it would have to be. It might change soon. The other thing is that I can have more than one standalone managed service account tied to a server, right? So we install SQL Server, next, yeah, all the checkboxes. Okay. Next thing you know, you've got 11 service accounts you need. 11 plus, actually, depending on what version you're running. That can be a pain. Well, you can use the one account for all of them if you want. You know, use the one MSA to run all my different accounts. It's got a pretty strong password. I might be okay with that. Does anybody use one domain account to run your agent and your engine and whatever else you have installed for SQL? Yeah, that's okay. I do that too. You can do one per service if you really wanted to, you're really concerned. It's like, yeah, my agent runs on a different account than my engine does. That kind of a thing. So you can get that in there too. We'll get into group managed in just one second because I've got another fun little story. Tales from the battles. There. I think it was on the previous slide. It said you can't log in interactively as this account. I really like running my SQL Server, my SQL agent as this kind of account because I got tired of people logging into my services as the service account to test their code. And test their SSIS packages, their ETL, their deploys. Worked on my machine. It's not working on your machine. Must be your service account. I'm going to log in as it. Red flag. Hold on. Don't log on to my service account, please. Like, just don't. I now use Core. I now run Windows Core because nobody knows PowerShell. They log into the machine. It's like, why is it black? Oh my God, what you do to my server? Go away, let me fix it. I literally run black boxes now. But it now forces people to do their stuff correctly, check the things correctly, deploy. If it doesn't work, try again. Don't come in as some account that I can't track really what's going on that system and make me think that now that you're manually running this and throwing alerts, that I have to wake up at 3 in the morning because you're logged into my box. This helps me prevent some of that kind of stuff. Take some control back of my system and my environment from other folks that were kind of doing some abuse to it. Leap forward in time, having multiple hosts wanting to have the same thing. Things, you know, little things like availability groups, that kind of concepts, things like that. We now have group managed service accounts. Similar to a standalone, but can be used on multiple servers. But same basic concept for what's there. Same management, all that. What it also does when we get to the group count is it synchronizes the passwords between the systems. So when we have our failovers and our AGs and that, the same passwords can be used. It's not going to have issues going through and all that kind of thing. But then everyone sees that part. Failover clusters don't support GMSAs. Key factor here, Windows failover cluster doesn't support this, okay? Services on top of the cluster can. SQL Server supports using MSAs, standalone or group. It runs on top of the cluster in Windows. Your Windows cluster is going to have to be run the same way it has been. You're going to have to deal with that. You know what? We mostly DBAs here. We don't deal with the cluster anyways. That's someone else's problem. Yeah, I know. I hear the chuckles. I deal with it too. Do you want a story about that too? There's nothing like hitting destroy cluster in your lab and realizing you just destroyed production in the middle of the day. I work for a finance firm. I still work for a finance firm because that is called an emergency drill. 3.5 hours later, we had it all back up and running. Yeah, I went back.
With regards to the group managed service accounts,
Uh-huh.
cluster, because I think you're still supposed to use the same service accounts that you're doing cluster setup.
When you're doing a cluster setup, do you still use just like the same service account on each one? It's just not a managed one? Sure.
Right, but you want them to,
Pardon?
for that purpose, could you use the group one?
You can't, not for the actual failover cluster component. You cannot use the group one. That's what that's kind of saying. The actual Windows cluster components don't support that. And that actually kind of comes into play in just a second. And when I'm done with this, we'll go through all the demos and see all the fun stuff here. We're almost there. Huh? Well, we'll get to that in just a minute, why they can't support it. So Windows Server 2012 and after, remember this came back out in 2008. After 2012, whenever you create a managed service account, it defaults to a group account. Right? So now this is our default. We can use it on multiple servers, not just a standalone. But you have the options to still set it up as an MSA, standalone one, locked to one server only, which is what I tend to do. I name it the same as my server. Say, this is my managed service account for that server. I know exactly what one and one is doing. And that's what I put out there and have out there doing that thing. And that's the restrict a single computer flag that you add in when we are setting up the managed service account. That's all you got to do that, and you're going to old school. In my cases, if I'm not running availability group, I have a standalone dev server. It's getting a standalone managed service account because I know that account is tied to that server. That's it. That's what it does. And I can manage other stuff outside of that. Things to watch out for with these things. There are some dependencies. Thank you, Wayne Sheffield. Go look this up and look up GMSA Wayne. Just Google that, and you'll get this article in here. Very good. He encountered a little issue that you get. There are some dependencies that you have to set in the registry when you use these types of accounts, or you run the risk when your server restarts that SQL Server will start before the communication protocols start, and you can't get to the Active Directory to get your password, and guess what doesn't start? SQL. Not a great thing for us. So there's a couple dependencies you got to set in there. There's the path to them, where they're going to be in. You got to make sure the key ISO, key isolation is in there. And you got to make sure W32 time is in there, the time sync for your Active Directory. Get those two dependencies in there that make sure that when your server restarts or your services restart, it's going to make sure those other services are running before we start SQL Server so that we can go get the password and be able to start things up and get it running. Now, if you're running on a domain prior to Windows Server 2008 R2, you have other issues, in my opinion. Anybody running that old? Okay, cool. Oh, I saw a hand kind of half up. Okay. All right, I understand. Here's the nice thing. The automatic password management thing will work. Yay, that's the main thing we wanted because we're lazy, efficient. We're efficient with that kind of thing. The auto SPNs don't work in the prior versions back then. So you're still going to have to go and set that up manually in your Active Directory to get that trust happening, to get not Kubernetes, Kerberos working correctly. Why did they call them so close to each other? Why did they make them such weird names? Now, this answers the question earlier of why doesn't failover cluster support MSAs versus other things. It really depends on who wrote what app or code and component if it will support this or not. It has nothing to do with your Windows version. It has nothing to do with anything else other than whoever wrote that component. In this case, it happens to be Windows failover, and that team seems to have gone, it's not going to work with managed service accounts. SQL Server went, I like that idea. We're efficient. We're going to use that, so we don't have to manage passwords. Yeah, we'll make it available for everybody. So you may be even sitting going, I've got other things I want to run this way. You might be able to. You might not be able to. It all depends on whoever created that and if it's configured to allow that. Does that make sense then? We're all good on that? All righty, cool. All right, let's go see how we actually do these things, how they work in that. We'll create an MSA in Active Directory. We'll associate that to a computer. We'll get it installed on a computer that this was associated to, and then we'll just go and configure our service and get it running and answer some questions first. Yes? Oh, she had a question. Sure. Okay.
I'm just wondering, so are you saying that a failover cluster instance could use the GMSAs,
The SQL level, you could use an MSA to run the SQL. You can run the components on top of the Windows Server failover is what it is. Right, that sits on top of that infrastructure. So you got the cluster thing is your infrastructure down there, and we're on top. Yep. It took me a while to get it at first, too. I was like, wait, but stuff on top of it works. Just that level below, that one down there specifically didn't. Yeah. If the text box where you enter a password doesn't accept it, then an MSA is not going to work?
Yeah, so if you have like a,
Okay.
like if you have an application where you have to enter a username and password,
Uh-huh.
and that text box isn't smart enough,
Oh, if it doesn't support it being, yeah.
you can't use a GMSA.
Yeah, and we'll see how you actually put the password in for an MSA, right? Because, you know, you're still going to have to put the account in. There's a password box. You got to put something in there. And so the comment is that he's found that if you're using some component, some app, whatever it is, and it requires you to put a password in or it will not work, it probably doesn't support MSAs, right? Did I get the gist of that right?
Yeah, so like
Cool.
Windows failure cluster, kind of something you can't.
Yeah, so Windows failover cluster, you have to put something in there. Yeah. All right, got one more in the back there, and then I'm going to jump into the demos because that's what everybody wants to see. That was way too many slides.
So my question is, would this work with using DSC, the desired state configuration with PowerShell?
This work with the desired state configuring PowerShell? Don't know. Haven't tried it. You know, again, I like to live outside the box and all sorts of weird things, but I haven't tried everything. That I don't know off the top of my head. I can try to find out. Grab my info after, email me, and I'll see what I can dig up on it. Or I'll go try it. I'll throw it in my lab and try it. That's the fun thing with this, right? Everyone's learned something to go home lab, work lab, and just, I'm going to try this. And I'm going to see how I can break it instead, because it worked for them, so I'm going to see if I can break it. That's what I tell myself, because everything I try does break. So I just like, yeah, that was my goal this whole time. All right, let's go see how we do this. And the easiest way I've found to do these things is to actually do it in PowerShell. That's the easiest way to configure an MSA account. Everybody see that okay? I think I'll bring that in just a little bit more. I'm going to hook up. I'm going to do this over on my demo machine. This is not a container. This is actually a Hyper-V machine running on here as well. This is why everything's slow. I got Hyper-V and containers and Kubernetes. I got everything running on this little thing. I'm waiting for it to burst into flames any minute now. Go, yeah. Let's see what's it saying to me here. Kerberos, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, it should be okay here. I think I've got what I need in here. That. Get hooked up into my demo system there. So first thing that this does this is just a remote connection. I could also go and log into my machine and do it directly there. My machine is running core. So it'll be a black box. I would just fire up a PowerShell admin window and then run the following commands after it to make sure I can get these components installed. To be able to put in an MSA, you're going to have Active Directory domain services on whatever machine you're doing where you're going to hook this up and configure it. Doing the initial creation is not so bad. I can do that pretty much from any machine. I don't have to be on the machine I'm putting it on. But these bottom parts down here where we do the actual install, you have to install it on the machine that you want to use the accounts on. That makes sense? I almost got lost myself. It has been a long week. Long week of mind-blowing stuff. So I go out there. Oh, why is this all doing this? Oh, yeah, that's the fun part here. Here's a fun thing. You can't do this on Windows 10. That's what all my errors are. You actually, because it's Active Directory service and that in here, this is why I usually have this connection going here. See if it's going to like me better this time. Oh, come on. Demo gods are not liking me. Oh, I heard someone had a question.
So the question that was just asked about DSE and the managed account?
Uh-huh.
You can do it.
You can do DSE and managed accounts. There's your answer. I didn't have to do. You're welcome. Fantastic. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
I had memorized the DSE script, so.
Oh, so that was a text message? There you go. Text message to the rescue. You know, I bet you SQL Help would have answered too. Hashtag SQL Help on Twitter. Hope everyone's on there. Oh, come on. Why is this acting up on me? Let me just... Huh? Do I have a time skew? Oh, you know, that's going to drive me nuts. I shouldn't have a time skew. It's all on the same machine. Huh? Yeah, it's connected to VM. There shouldn't be. I say there shouldn't be because like right 5 minutes before I walked in here, it was working. This is what demos do. Because you know, when you're at work, everything works perfectly, right? Yeah. Main controller, that one's there. Yeah, 7:25, 7:25, 10, yeah, it looks like it actually shifted time zones on me. No, that's created. No, that should be all right. Where does it say 8:40 there? Oh, 8:40 in the middle there. 7:24. Great, my servers are like traveling before I am. You know, let's just how am I going to want to deal with that? I'm trying to think of the quickest way to deal with that. When in doubt, restart, right? Yeah, let's do it. It's just a Windows server. It's Windows Server running SQL. We'll give that the old college click, right? How'd you fix the problem? Ah, click. Get this thing to fire up here again. See if it'll sync up. It may have started before the domain controller and didn't get synced up properly there, maybe. Hoping. Really? I'm going to give it a chance to boot. Is that saying that? Time of day? Yeah. Trying to think how else I want to handle that. Let's make sure I get out of that session. Give it one more try there, see if it's going to like me enough to get in. Dang it. All right. I'm going to show you the step. I'm not going to fight with this like forever just to get it to show on there. But what happens, get your AD, load the AD components in there. That's the first couple scripts in there. Sorry I don't have a video or jiffy thing about it. But here's the line that we're going to do. You go in and you create a new AD service account. Give it a name. I will usually name it what my server is because I like to set mine up, as I said, as a standalone when I'm doing a single server like this. So I set it as an SMSA. Go ahead and fire it up. Put your name in there. Enabled equals true. If I put the account, I want it enabled. I can't log it out, but I can disable it. I want it enabled. Trust it for delegation. We're going to set that to true. And there's my restrict a single computer, which means that it's going to sit there in my AD until I go and say, install this on this server and lock these two together. Right? You with me on that one? All righty. So we would hit F5, then it would run and go, bing, look, yeah, okay. Not be as red. I feel like I'm turning that red. Then what I'm going to do is go and hook this in, and I'm going to add a computer service account. The identity of Walks Demo SQL, which is my computer name in there, and the service account is going to be MSA Walks Demo SQL. Right? Pretty straightforward for putting that in there, right? This is why it takes 2 weeks. Get these accounts set up and made. Then what I would do is you log into the actual server, and we install the AD service account and the MSA account. Once you have the install to make sure that it works, you can do a test AD service account, and it will come back. And if you've got it installed successfully and it's ready to be used to put onto your services, it says true. So you with me on that one? Cool. Worst demo ever. Yes? I can do it in full command, logging on. For which?
For those commander where you said you had to go log on to the computer,
It's for what? For the ones down here?
Yeah.
You could do it through the session, because the session essentially says run this PowerShell over there, and is essentially on that machine. Because again, once you're running core, when I say I'm going to run it on the machine, I'm not going to go and RDP to the machine and log in and fire. I mean, I could, but in this case, that's why don't tell anyone I added that right before the session for the PS session. There you go. That's my own fault. Don't change your demo 5 minutes before coming in the door. But I actually had that in there because that will go out and then run the code over there, and then I can exit and come back to my local machine to do the other things. Yeah. Pardon? Why do I use? I had that on there because I put this in by default because most people don't have it installed. Or which? The add AD service account down bottom? This one in here? The documentation I found had that in there, and that ties my computer, because I'm doing a standalone, ties my computer name to my service name.
So that's just for MSAs?
You're right, it's just for MSAs that I'm doing this. This is very specific to setting up this one alone, too. I'm just doing a standalone. If I'm doing GMSA, I don't necessarily have to do that step. White shirt. Yeah, at this point, the server is still running under the old count. And I did what every good person does here. Let me see. I had that here somewhere. There it is, computer management. There's the service right now running on that machine using my account because I'm the DBA. Isn't that what we all do in our labs? Right? Run under my account. It'll be fine. And then you go, oh, yeah, I changed my password. Why is my server not working? Yeah. Yeah. Can I swap the account out? Without downtime, no. You have to have a bounce in this if you're going to swap out the account because you're telling it to run under a whole new service account. Right? You're still changing the account it's using to run, which changes the authentication it's going to use around your domain and everything. It's kind of wants you to go click, click. That's what happens. And when we put the account in, you say the stuff, and you say OK, it goes click, click. So that you got to watch for that there. Yeah.
So back to the PowerShell. Did those like check out?
PowerShell. Oh, here. Probably. No, they don't check out the password. What the PowerShell commands? What are they doing? Right. This is just setting up the account and getting it ready. The ones down at the bottom are now going on to the server I'm going to put this on and installing that account to make it an account that I can reference. Because again, the computer is going to have to go and say, hey, I've got to go and get stuff to complete this out. So let me get on to the next part, right? Whiz bang, whoopity pow. Supposedly it worked. Can you give me 1 sec? All right. This might even answer it. Maybe, I don't know. But when we get over, where'd my computer management go? Computer management. When we get in here, we say this, see if it's going to let me in here. And we got to change the login to use a managed service account. See that all right? There's, this is what we're used to seeing, right? This is how we set up our service to run. Normally it'd be done through the SQL management thing, but we're doing this remote with core. It's acting up on me as other things are. In here is where you would do the MSA, walks demo, SQL. $. Okay? Did you notice a subtle difference in what we set up and what I typed in? What is it? $. You got to pay for it. No, that's not what it is. Pardon? Can I zoom in? Yeah, sure. Oh, sorry. I thought that was... You can probably see it now. It's a small fee. Sorry, that was really bad. Yeah, this is referencing the MSA. When we went out and said add the AD service account out there, it created the managed service account, MSA, whatever server name we did. In this case, walks demo SQL. What does a $sign represent? The $sign is indicating that that's a managed service account. And what you do when you set this up, how you set the password is like this. That's how you set the password. The $sign is a flag, basically, when you set up the service account to say, hey, you're a managed service account. When you start up, go get the password. Get it set, put it in here, do what you got to do, and go. If you don't put the $sign in there, it's going to want you to enter the password. And that's the big difference with this when it comes to the managed service accounts. That's how we're kind of triggering it to say, I got a $sign at the end, you're going to go, you're a managed service account, use all the funky things they built in the back end there, go and get the passwords and log in and check your permissions and everything there. Yeah? Are we supposed to use configuration manager? Yeah, ideally.
Well, are we supposed to use this for managed accounts?
No, for managed accounts, you can do it through that tool as well. Truth be told, that mine was not working right on that system to start off with, but I know that I can do it this way because the ideal is the management tool. We tell everybody that, but if you kind of know what you're doing, which most of us do, you can do it here too. The nice thing with using the service manager thing is when I turn off my SQL engine, it will turn off my agent, my other things for me as well, versus here I can just stop that. And it kind of may freak out a little bit, a couple other things. So that's more the reason we say use that tool far more. But worst case scenario, when that tool doesn't want to work for you, and just so you know, well, I'll show you afterwards. I'll show you how it looks in a core system because there's no GUI in a core. So you have to use it remotely. And so how do you get that configured to work remotely? And that's actually done through computer management. That's a whole different thing there. Yes?
Does the Windows take care of adding like this server admin group and rights and permissions to all folders? Can you make this change?
So when I make this change, does everything else, like if this had permission to folders configured or policies and all that kind of stuff, does that go into effect? Yes, it does. Because this is the same thing as if this is going to work just like a normal account. So any permissions that I grant to this throughout my domain, on this machine, all that kind of thing, it's going to have permissions just like it's a regular account. The thing is that the password is managed for me. I can't log in as it. So it's removing a bit of that work from me. But it's also removing some of it away from my sysadmins. Now they'd start to like me more. So if I want it to be full-blown admin on the server, sure. Not a best practice, right? Now, like you know, I'll say this, don't follow this, it's not the best idea, but you can't log into this account either. So being a you know, local account with full access, it's a little bit safer than some of the others, but we're talking like a little bit safer. So, you know, again, not a best practice for it, but the other configuration you can do it the same way as you would for your SQL service. I'll grab one that was in back, and then I've got there. The local policy, yeah. Where would I add the local policy? The main one that you would need for this, like when you set up a SQL server, is log on as a service. It does it for you automatically. As soon as I go into here and I hit OK, if the account was there set correctly, it'll actually say, hey, letting you know I'm giving it log on as a service capabilities. The rest of the others, you'd have to go and configure any other things that you're doing with it. Again, it is the same as if I went and said, I'm going to do domain/SQL service or SQL Server account running, you know, the same thing as a normal account in every other respect. It's just that, again, the passwords, the SPN, the stuff that's happening up in AD is managed for us. The other stuff we still have to set and configure if we want to go beyond. So like when I set mine up, one of the things I've done in my environment, each one of my servers has its MSA. Well, I also have a file repository off on the side, a dedicated server that holds my backups from all my SQL servers. It's a primary landing place, and then we put them elsewhere and everything as well. Well, I didn't want to have to add every single one of these accounts to get permission to get over to this, so I made an AD group. That is the permission for SQL backup directory. I put all those individual accounts into that AD group. That AD group has permission over there, right? Because then as I take my servers off or get rid of them, I don't want to use a service account, I just delete it and all that kind of stuff. Just like we were doing in SQL with the roles and stuff from AD, we're now doing that in the file permissions over here because it was in a group that was in our AD, and I can go and pull that out of there, right? So you see how it's using some of these things, the management of all this starts to get a little bit easier. It also gives you, what I really like with this, when you get down to what individual did what, you can start to track that through the AD system, and they start to walk away from the DBAs knowing who's getting into what for everything and going, hey, how many people have sysadmin? I don't know, everybody in that group. Go talk to the sysadmin guys and the AD guys for that kind of a thing. I'm going to hit that and just see what it says, right? Yeah, see, so because I didn't install that account, right? I didn't install that account there, it says, oh no, I can't actually connect this in here. But normally we just say, okay, I'm granting it log on as service. You click OK, turns off the service, restarts it, comes ramps right back up. It's up and running, you connect in, everything works just like normal. And then again, all the other permissions for files and all that kind of stuff that's outside of what we normally would do in SQL, that's handled as if it was a normal account. Everyone with me on that? Yeah, kind of, sort of? Okay, let me get one over here. When the password rotation happens, does the SQL Server get restarted? No. That would intrigue me. Now, I will admit, I've had some issues on one of my servers that every 30 days, we should recognize that time period, the service stops. And I haven't checked yet. My buddy in the back, who's awake now, is going to check for me, that we checked that we've got those requirements on there, that our time is synced, and that the key isolation are set up correctly to be running ahead of time. You know, because really the only time it happens once a month. Yeah, see, he's laughing back there because he knows I caught him. But you know, we do our patching once a month just if we need to. Run cores, like every third month, you got to actually patch it. You get rid of the GUI and you throw away like 90% of Windows updates. It's fantastic. It's great. But yeah, so there's something that we didn't configure right on that one server because we followed kind of the same process for all the others, and they all work perfectly fine, and they do not have issues. I mean, it hits 30 days, and it's like, oh, it's still running. It's still chugging along perfectly fine. It's not having a problem. I don't have blips and that happen. Because when my servers blip, I get alerts like crazy. You know, phone goes off, email goes off, literally phone at home goes off, watch goes off, you know, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Work with mirroring, AG, launcher.
Does it work with mirroring, AD, all that kind of stuff? Yeah. Yeah. It's a service account. It doesn't change the way SQL Server functions, right? It's only the account that it's running under. So yeah, because you can set up, if you're doing log shipping, you're shipping that off to another SQL Server, right? And it's just replaying the logs over there. So that could be running a totally different account. It probably is right now, right? It's no different. So this is a fun thing with this. I know I'm at a SQL Server thing, right? I'm all SQL Server. I'm all in that. But this isn't really SQL Server world. This is the kind of the layer outside, and this is up in our Active Directory. So we're managing some things there. And we're trying to shift some of that responsibility for all this stuff off of our plates that we got to deal with. All these users get hung out here and hanging out. The fact that it's like, oh, yeah, I got to go rotate my passwords for my service accounts. I need downtime for that. Click, click. And I got to go put it in some password management system. And then I realized I forgot to do it once a month. And now I don't know what the password is. And now, then it starts to get scary. And that kind of stuff in there. Sorry that demo didn't work as nicely as it could have. Almost seems like an appropriate segue. We didn't see any of these ones because I had different issues before we got to this. But if you had it set and I put that in, I said, okay, I'm going to put my account, and I cleaned it up, and I hit OK, you may see some error messages that pop up. These are the ones to watch for. They're not too hard to fix. If you get a 1069 service did not start due to logon failure, your MSA account is probably disabled. As I said, it can't be locked out, but you can disable it. And the code that I had to remember, it said, oh, we're going to enable this equals true. I want to make sure that when I create that, I'm setting this up, I want that account enabled so I can use it. If it's not, you go enable it in your Active Directory. And when you get into your Active Directory, you'll find there's a separate directory. Where did my AD go? No. There it is. There. There's a separate section over here. By default, guess what organizational unit is going to put a managed service account in? It's a hint. The managed service account one. You don't have to leave them in there, but that's where it's going to make them. So you know when it makes it, you're going to see it in there. And had that run, I go in there, you would see MSA, and you just see the name of the account there. And there it is. But to manage it and change the configurations on it, that kind of thing, that's when you've got to go and you've got to get into PowerShell and do some stuff in there. So if you got that error, you had the MSA disabled. If you get an error that says duplicate backlink, this is specific to using an MSA. That means that you're trying to use it on another server after you've already allocated it to a different server. Guess what you do? You either make it into a group managed service account or you make a different account for it. Or you get rid of it on the old server and move it on to the new. Add AD computer service account. The object could not be found on server. Odds are you have a typo in the name of what the account that you're putting in. Like, seriously, it's just like, couldn't find it, that's what it is there. If you get an error that says enter a valid password, it means that you left those old little stars in the bottom after you put it in with the $sign. You left those little stars and you hit OK. It went, oh, all right, and you actually overwrote the password it didn't have, and it says, I can't do that. So all you got to do, go back, clean out the password, make sure the $sign's there, you're good to go. If it comes back and says account name invalid or does not exist, password invalid for the account name specified, guess what you did? You forgot the little $sign. That's the major errors you get with this thing when you try to launch it. You'll be like, oh no, it's freaking out. Oh, $sign. Yeah. Oh, all right, delete the old password, leave it empty, which just seems so counterintuitive. My service account runs with a blank password. Yeah, no, it doesn't. It gets one. It's complex in there. It does the stuff. There's some extras. If you want to know the best practices in troubleshooting and detail, I got a lot of notes about this. It's available out there on TechNet and that. When you go and you've decommissioned a server and you want to remove these accounts, there's a two-part process to it. First, you go in, you're going to uninstall the AD service on the machine that you had with the identity flag on it, and you just enter in what the identity was. And then, ideally, you go to the Active Directory and get rid of the account there as well, and keep it clean, and make that disconnect in there. All kind of makes sense? Cool. I'm going to try to, like, over the next few months, get a video thrown together to actually have the demo working. And I'll be posting it out on my site and that. If you want that info, I'm going to have it up there. You can follow me on Twitter at CBellDBA, and also Waterrocks Consulting. It's my former business, but the website is still there. It has all my blogging, has all the slides, all my presentations I've done in the past, a lot of different security ones and that. It's going to have this stuff up on there soon as well. I hope that you found that a little bit interesting. You can see how we can now go and say, I can start to use my AD groups and that, and I can not have my individual login accounts there. And now, had my demo worked correctly, you would have been like, wow, look at that amazing thing that I can now have my services running where the passwords are rotating and is doing all this stuff for me, and I don't have to do it anymore. You know, we're DBAs, right? Database administrator. That's the boring, mundane thing everybody says. Default blame acceptor. Yeah, we know that one too, right? That do about anything is what kills us. Because we do. We know how all the different things work. It's what we do. My goal with these things is like, let's get rid of these little bits and pieces. Just keep picking at us and keeping us busy where we can't do the things we really want to do. And move this off and get it off to other folks to manage it and that kind of thing in there. We all good? You gonna try it out? You gonna go in your labs first? Yeah, alrighty. Production first. Yeah, you must have been a developer. Don't always test, but when I do, it's in live. Yeah. Yeah.
Automatic delegation piece, like if this was a regular domain service account, you have to go right-click at the delegation, make sure they're...
Yeah, for the delegation, as far as Kerberos goes, you have to go manually configure that.
If it's a managed service account, right?
Right, managed service, well, it depends on which version of Windows you're doing, and I always like to double check anyways, but it does actually configure that in there. You can go look at the properties, you'll see like the SPN is put in, which is a major part of that.
Right.
But then the delegation is usually set in there as well.
So if your service is running as a managed service account or a group managed service account, you should no longer get the account generate SSPI context areas when you're trying to do multi-hop.
Oh, you're saying when you're doing the multi-hop and LinkedIn, once you put this in place, that should go away? I wish it was that easy. This is a newer part where I've got like half my systems running on this yet, and of course it's not the systems that hop to each other. So I haven't dug in that deep. The theory is sound that yes, that's what would happen in there, but definitely worth, if you do it, go and double check that it did set the different settings that you're expecting for your environment. Absolutely is what I would do on that. Cool, yeah.
I have
2
two comments.
comments, uh-oh. Comments, not questions.
Kind of both. We're running these extensively.
Huh?
Were you going to mention anything about SQL versions that these run on? Because, like,
Mention anything about the SQL versions that these run on and that kind of a thing? First question, okay, well, let's get through that. It's, I haven't hit an encounter going as far back as 12, but I don't generally support earlier than 12 anymore.
So I can help you there.
Okay?
2012, only MSAs are supported by Microsoft SQL.
That's the standalones.
Standalone.
What OS are you running on that on?
Running on
2012, okay.
It's not an OS thing.
Okay, so that's the limitation that they've got. They're just standalones,
Right.
which makes sense when you look at the timeline.
Right, so 2012 runs, you can only run, on SQL 2012, you can only run MSAs. And so you
Okay.
can't use anything that's running SQL 2012 to be on the cluster or always on.
Okay.
You still have to use traditional.
Okay, so 2012 earlier, still have to use traditional.
2012 is the first time that.
So 2012, okay, SQL 2012 is when you could first use this type of account. Gotcha.
Then 2014.
And then before that, not.
2014.
GMSAs came out with 2014.
And then the other thing you didn't comment on was, are you aware that GMSAs can be added to AD groups? They can be added, but they're ignored. So
I have not, so the comments that, that if you add it to an AD group, it's ignored. I have not had that issue happen yet to me. So, and it may be that I do primarily mine in standalone.
you might not have hit
So
it yet.
I probably haven't hit that one yet.
So there's an issue. So
Well, if you want another fun thing, that's actually if you're going through the other security sessions that we're going on, audit doesn't pick up the fact that it's, when you do AD groups, it doesn't pick up the group, it still tells you the individual in the audits for SQL audit natively.
The issue you
So,
have with GMSAs, the AD group is like what we're like what you were saying, you can use it to get to all your backups.
right,
So you throw your MSAs in an AD group, and then you can get to your backups. But your GMSAs, that won't work. So what happens then is your AD team, if you're doing all your backups to one big share, and let's say you have 500 machines like we do, or
right,
they then have to individually backall GMSA through the whole tree in the backup structure.
yeah.
And that's when the AD guy comes over and chops your head off.
That's when you tell them, yeah, I get that he would come and want to chop your head off for trying to set it on 500 different things, but I'd say learn PowerShell, dude.
We're not
Yeah.
AD admin, but so they're the only ones that can
Right,
tackle that share.
yeah.
So there is definitely limitations with GMSAs.
Oh yeah, there's going to be limitations in all the different things that we do. Again, this kind of grew out of a fun little theory. Can it be done? Can I go and throw out the accounts? Can I get to a point of not having an actual individual log into my system? So,
A lot of our systems don't have individual logins.
yeah. So a lot of your systems don't have them just because of that kind of thing. And, yeah.
You know, we're doing AD groups.
AD groups and,
Eliminated
yeah.
SQL logins.
Yeah, and yay for getting rid of SQL logins too, because that's usually a big black hole for that as well. So it is possible. It's just, again, when you get into the service accounts, it gets into a different thing, but it's a different structure than what you're dealing with inside of the SQL server and those permissions and that. So yeah. I'm scooting over here real quick. All right, I'm going over here.
So you can definitely add GMSAs to AD groups.
Yeah, you say you can add them, but he's saying if it's specifically it's not a standalone one, that the issue is that it ignores it.
It's above an AD is that when you can add it to a group, but if you go to the group and if you go
How are we time-wise?
will not recognize. Actually, if you look
Oops.
at GMSA, you bring up GMSA, page GMSA in Active Directory and look what it's a member of, there is no tab for member of. Okay, so in Active Directory does not recognize it as part of the group. You can add it to a group, but
I so want you both to start following me on Twitter, and just have a conversation about that and tag me in there.
So I was curious, what's some of your most creative ways that you've used them so far?
Use these. The managed service account specifically, I'm just using it primarily on my SQL servers just to get it out. Earlier I mentioned I use it so that people can't log into my service as my service. That was really one of my primary goals for that, is because it really kind of yanked my chain that people were logging in as my service accounts. And it's because I have to store the credentials in a password management tool that everybody has access to, right? So it's like, yeah, okay, fine. I can only control that so much. And so that started to really bug me. That's like, I'd rather you figure your code and your deployment process out versus doing that kind of thing to me there.